Welcome to Watermark's Church Leadership Podcast, a conversation with church leaders for church leaders. I'm your host, John McGee. Thanks so much for joining us today. Well, hey friends, welcome back. Today we're talking about excellence, which is one of the staff values that we rolled out to our staff as we continue our series. And we're going to talk about really what excellence looks like in practice. So hopefully that will be helpful to you individually. This will also be one of those episodes that will be a great team conversation. But then also we want you to kind of think about what does it look like for you to articulate what it is you want to call your teams, your church to, and hopefully this will be a model. So I'm joined in the studio today by John Elmore. So we're going to jump into our content here in a second. But John, you're one of our teaching pastors. It feels like every Sunday you've got a fantastic story about your kids. Every dad has got stories, but I just feel like yours are kind of like next level. So what's fresh?
Particularly
you just
problematic.
No, they're just interesting. They are. I always lean forward. It's like, some people it's like, okay, this guy's it's another kid story, it'll be cute, things like that. But I always perk up when you talk about Judd or somebody else. So do tell what's fresh, what's going on in your house, and we'll jump into the content.
All right. So 2 weeks ago, it was our fall break, and my parents never got me a BB gun as a kid. I wanted one. I really, really wanted one. They're like, no, they're dangerous. So when it came time for me to be a parent, I'm like, I am getting my kids BB guns. And so I got a couple of them, just like nothing serious. This is like a one crank Red Ryder from Walmart.
Yeah,
and so Laura and I are having coffee. We're sitting on the patio, just like chill morning, talking, super peaceful and serene. And all of a sudden, our 9-year-old Hill comes running around the front porch, and he's like, Dad, it's something serious. And there's a spectrum in a 9-year-old's mind of like something serious. I don't know if that means like he threw a shoe on the roof or, there's a dead squirrel in the road. I don't know what something serious is, but then I remembered, well, I had given them the 2 BB guns, so maybe I should go see. And so I walk around the corner to the driveway.
Oh, so they're in the front. You've got 2 kids out front with BB guns.
I feel a little bit of judgment when you clarify.
You're very perceptive.
Yes, they were unattended, unsupervised, with BB guns all by themselves.
Oh my goodness.
I mean, what could happen? So I walk around to the driveway, and before I even see anything, I can hear something. And I literally hear this like, and there's glass in real time falling in little bits to the ground. And Judd, our 5-year-old, had shot out the back window of my Suburban. And I look at him, and he's standing in the field, downrange, mind you, like down from the target. He had walked down from the little, kind of bullseye paper plate target, and is now firing back past his brother and sister into my car. And I mean, how can you be mad at I'm the one that gave him the
as my kids would say, that's on you, kid.
100%. Yeah. I like at first my reaction was towards him, and then I told Laura, I'm like, this is completely my fault. Like, who gives a BB gun to a 5-year-old and doesn't watch them? And in my mind, I'm like, well, I taught him gun safety. But I taught him gun safety when he was like 3. Okay. So you don't remember anything at 3. You have like the memory of a goldfish. And so he doesn't know. In his mind, he's like, you never taught me anything. You just gave me a gun.
I can't wait for your parenting book. I don't know what the title is. Give him a BB gun and go grab coffee. I mean,
what could happen?
Truly.
Yeah. They asked me recently,
oh my!
What do you want to share at the parenting conference? I'm like, well, I don't have anything to share.
Let's hope that you're more thoughtful about our topic than you are about your parenting here. And so,
That's fair.
So we thank you. That's the kind of that's what I'm looking for. You share that on a Sunday.
You're
You've
welcome,
got me.
man. I'll make you feel better about your parenting.
I am dialing it. That's right. So, John, we talked about these 4 different staff values. You and I were given the task to talk about excellence in front of our staff. And so we just want to share really just the outline that we had. We just cobbled together 6 points. Some of them were questions, some of them were comments, warnings, and hopefully in addition, just the actual content will be helpful to you as you think about excellence in your own ministry, your own leadership, those kinds of things. So we started in a little bit of a downer, John, like this is the only value that we gave a bit of a history lesson and also a warning too, which was an interesting way to start. But here's effectively what we shared with the staff, and I think it's helpful as you think about excellence in your context. So when we think about the church, the last 50, 60 years in America, the 60s were a pretty crazy time in society. Churches really turned inward. They weren't thinking about innovation. They weren't thinking about excellence, those kinds of things. And so what happened was, many people came to church and were like, I'm kind of out on this, which is where then the seeker-sensitive movement came, because a lot of people weren't coming to the church. That was completely irrelevant to them. The culture had moved. And so you start to see this idea of excellence start to come into the church in the 70s. Very influential church in 1975 starts, Willow Creek, and it's actually in their stated, I guess maybe their values, and they talk about excellence being honoring to God and inspiring to others. I mean, it would have been there. Had they had a website, it would have been front and center. It was definitely in their documents, the way that they led and talked about their church. And so you begin to see excellence show up. And I think in many respects, as I'm not a historian, but as I think about the church landscape, in many respects, some of that was really helpful. So people began to think about, what would it look like if, we just talked about preaching. If we're going to preach, what would it look like to be interesting? What would it look like to bring in other elements other than just speaking? And you see lots of arts start to show up, and you start to see kids ministry be much more than just flannel graphs and, tart lemonade, things like that. You see outreach that's really innovative. So this idea actually really was helpful, and probably a lot of evangelical churches grabbed on. It spurred some good thinking, some good programs, some innovative ways to reach people. And so there's a part of this that was really, really helpful. But our warning to the staff was that, and this was the only value with the warning. We didn't warn them when it came to dependence and prayer. We didn't say, hey guys, watch it, make sure you don't overdo this one. But what we did want to say is, this is one you could take too far. This is the only one we're going to give with a warning. And here's what we mean, is that if this becomes the goal, if excellence becomes the goal, then we've got a problem. And excellence is a means, it's not a goal. So we are trying to make disciples. We are trying to help our people love God and love others. And excellence can be a means to do that. But the defining question when we're done with a sermon, with an event, with a ministry, is not, was that excellent? It was that it helped us reach our goal, our mission of making disciples. Now, it is absolutely one of the questions we can ask. Was that excellent? Did we bring the best? Did we do the best with what we had? But it is not the defining question. And so we just wanted to give them a bit of a history, and then also a bit of a warning about don't make this the singular focus of your leadership, of your ministry, of your kind of the way you interact here on staff. However, it's a great means to pull off these things that we are really, really passionate about. So anything to add there before we jump into the outline?
Man, just that I've seen you live this value in a way where your heart is right unto the Lord for the building up of the body, and not you like grasping to have notoriety or fame or make it about John, or I hope I get pats on the back. Like I see you live this. You've modeled it for our whole staff. So I've just now thinking, as I'm sitting here listening to you sharing this, I'm like, yeah, dude, you live this, and you live it well.
Well, thank you, brother. I hope that's true. I hope that's true. Thank you. Well, what if we just jumped into the outline that we shared with our staff?
Yep.
And your first one really was more of a question than a statement, but it's just this: is what is your motivation for excellence? It's the first question we should ask as we think about this staff value. So I'd love your thoughts on that.
Yeah, 100%. So I think it's, as you say, what is the motivation? Like, that's got to be the starting point, and for it not to be the reason, but it's a result. Or you might say it can be a fruit of it, but it shouldn't be the root. Like, my root aim isn't like that I want to create something for excellence just for excellence sake, but that the motivation is unto the Lord. And for that, I think about a warning. So in Simon the Magus, or the magician, in Acts chapter 8, he saw the works that the apostles were doing. He had a pretty good game with his magic show, had a lot of fame, and people knew who he was and what he could do. And then the apostles roll in, and miracles are happening through them. So he says, hey, give me this power that I might have it also. In fact, he offers to buy it. And Peter rebukes him. He's like, you need to pray to the Lord. Because what he saw in him, what Peter saw in him, was this desire to be great. He wanted the power, he wanted the excellence for himself, and not as unto the Lord. And so a verse that can get that, what is the motivation, so that we set our heart right, the root right, for the fruit to be excellent, is Colossians 3:23 and 24. It says, whatever you do, and let's just stop there, no matter who you are, what your function is, what your gifting is, what your station in life is, whether stay-at-home mom, senior church leader, elder, administrative assistant, front desk, whatever you do, work heartily as for the Lord and not for men, knowing that from the Lord you will receive the inheritance as your reward. Then this key part, so such a boiler statement. You are serving the Lord Christ. And that right there, the motivation. I'm serving the Lord. I'm serving Jesus. And so in that motivation, I think you get the essence there. Like, what I do, I'm doing for Christ.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. He deserves our best. And I wasn't a very good host. I think we had a definition that I was supposed to ask you about. Do you want to read that now?
Hey, man, you asked me if I had anything to add, and I think I spaced.
This podcast on excellence is not flowing as it should, but here we are. Do you mind reading the definition?
This is what we define as a staff. To whom much is given, much is expected. As stewards of God's resources, our aim is to be found faithful in how we invest and use them. This includes our own skills and abilities, the physical and financial resources that we have been entrusted with, and most importantly, the lives of the people we are called to serve and lead. We believe that excellence honors God and inspires people, and every day we press on toward the goal that God has called us to. Now, here's what I'd say. That's a lot. That's like 8 lines on my card. And I think you've got a boiler statement that's really helpful, and that I've heard you say. It's doing the best you can with what you have for Him. Doing the best you can with what you have, and there's excellence, but here's the motivation, for Him. And then another verse that I would just point to as we're talking about this and the motivation is Ecclesiastes 9:10, which talks a lot about work. And Solomon writes, whatever your hand finds to do. So there it is again. It's like this kind of like full spectrum, whatever your hand finds to do it with all of your might. So we know that, but then it goes on to say, for there is no work or thought or knowledge or wisdom in Sheol to which you are going. He's like, hey, now you're living. And so whatever your hand finds to do it with all your might, because you've got a finite amount of time, and then you're going to be dead. There's a shot clock on your life, all the days appointed to you before yet one of them came to be. And when I read that and I was thinking about this with excellence, there's those old Renaissance paintings that we've all seen. It's like some old dude with a scrawny beard sitting before stack of books, and he's got a skull with a candle burning on it, which is always like, before I knew what it was, I'm like, man, that is dark. That's kind of twisted. Like he's got some, I don't know who he killed, and now he studies by lamplight of his head. Like that's pretty messed up, and I don't know why we're celebrating this in the Louvre. But what I came to find out is that that's what older theologians, scholars, they would do. They would have a skull with a candle burning on it, and the Latin phrase memento mori, which means remember your death. What they were doing in that moment is they were like, I'm going all in on whatever sphere of influence the Lord has given me, because I know that I will not live forever. I've got a finite number of days, and so I'm going to live with intentionality and purpose and excellence, because as He is, I someday will be, like pointing to the skull. And so I'm going to remember the day of my death, and I'm going to steward my days well in excellence for the Lord.
I love it. So yeah, life is short. We will be with our Savior forever. But here, on this side of eternity, we serve Him.
Yeah.
So we bring our best. And that's the most you illustration I could ever think of, is a skull with a candle in it. That only you would pull that out and start banging on the
Dude, I want the tattoo.
You're going to get, what are the odds? What are the odds the next time someone sees you, you've got that tattoo?
Well, if it was just up to me, really high. But 1 Corinthians 7 tells me my body is not my own, and Laura's not about a skull and candle on my forearm. So... TBD.
Okay. I love it.
But you can send her emails.
Yeah. Laura's good for you, I would just say. Okay. That was number one. Really, it's a question. What is your motivation for excellence? So that's where we started. Number two was really a way to do that. How would you do this? And so we said for number two was just always ask, how can we make this better? Always ask, how could we make this better? And so that happens both before you do something, if you're writing, if you're planning an event, you're planning a message, before, how can I make this better? I've got this much time left until this thing ships, before I give the message, before we have the event. How can I make this better? You push all the way to the end. Then during, you walk around with eyes to evaluate everything that's going on and ask, if I was going to do this again, how could I make this better? And then afterwards, you debrief. And so if you're a communicator, you get feedback from people who are actually helpful, not just anybody. You get feedback from people that are helpful. And John, I know that you solicit feedback from a few people, and that's how you get better. If you planned an event, you ask people that were there. You get your team that put it on, and you talk about one of the phrases we use is OFIs, opportunities for improvement. What are our OFIs? Or always a very, very simple way to run something, an event or anything through is what would I keep, what would I start, and what would I stop? And, which is to say, if I was to do this again, man, how could I make this better? And there really is immense power, especially if you do something repeatedly. If this is something that's going to show up repeatedly, one of our ministries we have is with a pre-married ministry, and it runs, I don't know, I can't remember exactly, but I think, 10 to 12 times a year. You've got these different classes all throughout, 8-week classes or weekend classes. And I remember one time running some numbers and just coming to the mathematical realization that if you did something 12 times and you made it just 6% better each time, so which is probably above the waterline, not very observable, 6%. But if you did something 6% better 12 times, net, when you're done, you make it 100% better. And what would it be like to have something that was good, but you could say objectively, this is actually 100% better than the very first time we do that? Now, that's going to take some work. It's going to take you having to put down some of your pride at thinking that you have all the best ideas, that you are the best to do certain things. The team may tell you that you're not the best for that. You do this really well, but you don't do that. Well, then you got to decide, do I want to make this better, or do I want to make this about me? And, and John, there's lots of people around here, I think, that embody this value. And I told the story. I won't mention the name specifically, but there was a young communicator here on our staff, and there was, rightfully so, a lot of hesitancy. And we're not talking about you, but there was a lot of hesitancy to let this person ever speak anywhere. Like making announcements was risky. And the way that he went through his preparation beforehand and got feedback, and it's sometimes, honestly, just beat up, as people said, that it's not clear. What are you doing? Why did you say that? Just to be really blunt and help him. And then he would get a ruthless feedback on the back end. Actually, he would practice beforehand. He would practice multiple times. Then he would deliver it beforehand, get some feedback, and then afterwards do what very, very few preachers will do, is ask for honest feedback. And he would welcome. And I would watch. I sat in a couple of those sessions, and people were so honest. They didn't play Christian nice. And you roll the clock forward. And so what was so fascinating is people go, I want to communicate just like this guy. How can I do that? And I thought, well, it's not easy, but it's simple. Before you deliver a message, you practice like crazy, then you get feedback, then you deliver the message, and then you get feedback again. And you do that over and over and over again. And you will wake up and you will be an excellent communicator. But it was so hard. Not simple, but so hard. And I feel like you and I have seen several people do really, really incredibly hard work to become excellent, either as a craft or run a ministry, help lead something. And it's honestly, it's pretty inspiring. But the way they did that, the way you make anything excellent, is you ask relentlessly, how could we make this better? Or how could I make this better? So
100%. And I think it really matters what you've just said in our instant gratification culture. And like we want the title, the position, the whatever, ASAP. And instead it's like, Jordan or Pistol Pete Maravich or all these people, they're like, well, what you didn't see was the 12 hours and all the misses and all the refining, all the sweat, all the practice, all the coaching that's behind the scenes. And so what I would say along with that is like to not get discouraged in the moment and to not take any of it personal, but instead be like, I want to do the best I can with what I have for him. And so that means knowing I've not arrived at whatever point I am, and that I'm going to keep growing this side of eternity.
That's so, I didn't share this, but I actually remember giving a talk around a topic that I'm pretty fluent in now, and a good friend, a really, really good friend, told me kindly but very specifically, the things I could change, that was not very good. And I remember he told me that he gave me some constructive feedback. It's like, you can make this better. This is, we're talking 15, 16, 17 years ago. And I didn't like it at the time. And I remember having a choice. Like, I could fight him and say, nope, this is the way I do it. Or I could see that as from God and begin to make those changes, which were hard for me. But I tried at least the best I could to work on those. And now it's something that's by and large been a blessing to other people. But I just had a flashback to receiving this feedback and how it just kind of crushed me in some respect. But it was part of the process of making something excellent. And if you want to make something excellent, you're going to have to ask, how can I make this better? And you're going to have to ask other people and be open to the feedback. The feedback from people that, again, we've talked about this before on the podcast, but that can actually be helpful, not ones that wound you or really don't have anything thoughtful to offer you. So surround yourself with thoughtful people. So, John, number 3, we talk about, what does excellence look like? Because we're trying to help our staff understand this, hopefully help our listeners understand what excellence looks like as well. You said to anticipate and over-deliver. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, anticipate and over-deliver. I think about it as put yourself in the place of the one you're seeking to serve. And so, if you're hosting people at your house, you're going to think, all right, they pull up, and what that could look like is they walk through the door, and I'm like, oh no, let's see, I got some spaghetti, noodles, and a little bit of honey, and okay, I've got some Cheez-Its, and what do we have to do? We don't have anything to drink. Would you like water with ice or without ice? It's like you haven't thought about them coming. There's no preparation. Whereas otherwise, there's the phrase, nothing cleans like company. People are coming over. You're getting ready. They're going to walk through the door. What are they going to smell? How are they going to be greeted? What are they going to see? What are they going to be offered? And so it's that anticipation and over-deliver, whether that's your boss, whether it's people coming to your house, whatever sphere of influence the Lord's given to you, to anticipate the person's need and then over-deliver. And we've been going through Life of David on Sundays together as a church. And when I was thinking about this with excellence, I thought about the difference between Nabal and Abigail in 1 Samuel 25. And David and his men are out, and they're hungry, famished, men of war out apart from where they live, and they come across Nabal, and they're like, hey, we're hungry, we need something. And Nabal basically just scoffs at him. In Abigail, you see this completely different response where she gives them like hundreds of loaves of bread and hundreds of skins of wine and raisins and clusters of grapes. Like, she goes all out, and she sends it ahead of her in advance. She had anticipated the needs of those who were arriving and then completely blew their expectations. She had 5 prepared lambs, like not just here's 5 lambs, like, you butcher them, do what you want with them. She's like, I've got these like ready for the spit for you guys to turn on a barbecue. I know you're hungry. I know you've been wandering, and just completely over-delivers. And I think it's a great picture of us. You just put yourself in the mind of the one that you're going to host or serve, or that you're leading under or above, whatever it is. And again, anticipate the needs and then over-deliver, like blow their expectations. And that will be seen as excellence. And again, not so that you can be thanked and, oh my goodness, you're the best host. Again, it's the Lord Jesus Christ you are serving as you serve his people.
That's so good. That's so good. Yeah. And we know what it's like to have someone or something that's over delivering, and how excited we are both to be the recipient of that, and then how excited we are to tell other people about it, and it really is. It's fun to receive someone, something, be in a restaurant, and you go, that was so far and above my expectations. Now I'm telling everybody. And you want that for whatever it is that you do. If you greet people, if you check kids in at kids ministry, if you teach a kids Sunday school class, if you preach a sermon, if you lead in the youth ministry, just to have people go, oh, I wouldn't have thought it would have been that good, that thoughtful. That's what excellence looks like. I was surprised on the upside, which a lot of times isn't the case in the church.
Dude, so Laura and I were at a CLC church. They come annually. And so they had me up there to preach on a Sunday, and we're visiting, and we're staying at this hotel. No joke. The hotel, we get to the room, and I'm like, oh, hey, I think our maid or room service forgot to put the coffee in there. Could you send something up? They're like, we actually don't have any. go to the front desk. I'm like, well, surely that's a mistake. Like the housekeeping staff doesn't have coffee. Like I'll go to the front desk. I'm like, hey, we need coffee. And they're like, well, we have tea. And I'm like, no, I'm not British. We'll go for coffee. And they literally had no coffee in the hotel. I think that's illegal. There was no anticipation of like, all right, we're going to have guests traveling here at a hotel. We have to have coffee. And it was painful, man.
That's under-delivering.
The opposite, it's like, well, I'll never stay there again.
Yeah, that's right.
So here's the thing. The hotel completely neglected the fact that we would be coming, no coffee, which is crazy. And yet this church, who have become dear friends through CLC, Andrew Horton, John Driver at the church at Pleasant Grove, we show up into our room, and whereas the hotel doesn't give us coffee, they have this spread. Like they completely anticipated our arrival and then wildly over-delivered. So much so that I had to repack my bag to even get the stuff home. It was like things for our kids, things for Laura. I mean, I was there to speak one time, and the hospitality that we were met with by Andrew's wife, Julie, and the thoughtfulness of the church, cards and coffee and candy and snacks and food and breakfast bars, like complete anticipation and then over delivery, just an excellence as a way to love us. And so, I mean, I'll never forget. I've never been hosted that way in my entire life by these incredible believers.
Which really is a real easy bridge into the next point, that excellence builds trust. Excellence builds trust. And then conversely, we would say lack of excellence erodes trust. So you're not going to recommend that hotel specifically or that chain to anyone. And in fact, you'll tell your friends, whatever you do, don't stay there because of your experience. And the same thing happens, under your leadership or in the church.
Right.
So what you do, whether you exceed expectations or don't meet them, will either build trust or it will erode trust in you and whatever it is that you're involved with. But also, this is what I wanted our staff to know, is that what we do, because we're part of the body of Christ, whatever it is that you do, if you do it well, then people automatically assume that everyone else at the church, everyone else on staff, everyone else that is in leadership, every member is excellent as well. But no matter what environment you show up to, it will be excellent, right? So if they show up on a Sunday morning, you preach a great sermon, John, then and the worship was good, they were greeted well, their kids were well taken care of, they will assume then the next day is Monday night here at Watermark. That's when we have our recovery ministry. The assumption will be, that's excellent.
100%.
That's excellent. I might go check that out.
Mm-hmm.
And if they had a really poor experience at every level on Sunday, their expectation would be that, well, Monday is going to be more of the same. I don't know that I would cancel any of my plans or make an effort to go there. So you're either building trust and in effect passing that gift on to everyone else that you're on a team with, or you're eroding it and in some ways costing them in environments and situations that you will never be a part of. Even though they didn't have an opportunity to speak for themselves, you spoke for them. And so we just talked about that for a little bit, what that would look like as a staff. Every week we get these first impressions. So someone can write anything they want to, on a Sunday morning. We'd ask them, hey, what was your feedback on the sermon? How can we pray for you? Is there any ways we can follow up with you? Well, if we don't follow up with that person, someone who took a risk and put something there, they either electronically or wrote it out physically, they're going to assume that everyone, at this big church doesn't really care, and they won't follow up. Conversely, someone follows up, does an amazing job. How can I serve you? How can I help you think about a next step? Where are you in your faith journey? How can I pray for you? How can I help you navigate this big place? They're going to assume that's the way everyone is. And so I just wanted our staff to know that it isn't just about you. What you do or what you don't do really impacts all of us. And then there's also, to that as a sub point, excellence is contagious. I think when somebody on your team is doing excellent work or preparing excellence or delivering excellence, you want to do the same. And so you really do not only pass on trust, you can also help people find the next gear because of your excellence. So that was number 4. Excellence builds trust, or lack of excellence erodes trust. John, you had the next one, number 5, that excellence is costly. What do you mean by that?
Yep. When I say excellence is costly, I think about the fact that every yes is 100 no's. And so if you're going to go all in on one thing, it means that there is diminished time, attention, resources going to others. And so you've got to know like where to put your chips, where to go all in, and what squeeze will be worth the juice. And so it's really, it's an investment. And you can't give the same level of investment and excellence to all things, or it's going to lead to burnout. I've got a preaching mentor here at the church, and I always run my sermons by him, and he gives me really helpful feedback. And he said to me recently over email, he's like, "Hey, not every point, they're all good points, but not every point can be as important. They can't be equally important. There are some that are going to be more. Like when you go gospel, that's going to be like ultimate importance compared to others. And so you've got to have a different level of investment of time and energy and tone and inflection on that emphasis, because that's the most important. And so there's a real intentionality to, all right, where will I put the time, the resources? What is it that only I can do? What is it that our ministry is called to do? What is my role in particular as you think about your role on a church staff or within a ministry? And biblically, I think about the tabernacle and the temple, and the Lord gives such detail and specific instruction to the tabernacle and the temple, like really minute detail that frankly, I think a lot of even people wouldn't see, but God saw it. And so he's talking about, the tops of the columns and pomegranates and these really ornate details that I think people would have been like, does that really matter? And he's like, well, this is so that I will be worshiped rightly, and it is a reflection of me, and so it does matter. And it was really costly. But then you see in other areas of Scripture, and there's freedom, there's liberty, and there's not that level of detail. And so when it comes to some things, God is really particular, and it was really costly, whether it was the gold or the craftsmanship or the intentionality, the specificity towards it. And to go like to the opposite extreme, and if you're like, well, I'm going to go that level of investment in all things, it sounds right anecdotally, but what happens is there's a diminishing towards all of it, because you're trying to invest. If I spend 4 hours responding to an email, it could be the most thoughtful email I have ever crafted in the entirety of my life. Like it would be, to say it ridiculously, man, you could publish that thing. But that's not a good stewardship of, well, I'm also supposed to be preaching Psalm 40 on Sunday, and I think that's actually where the hours need to go for the body and what I've been called to do. And this email is probably 15 minutes. It's going to be an excellent email within 15 minutes, but it is costly. And so thinking through that.
I love it. Yes. Not everything can be excellent. We wanted our staff to know that doesn't mean we roll this out that we need everybody to work 80 hours. We want them to prioritize, spend the energy where energy could be appreciated, where the creativity could be observed, where it would make, a real impact. It would move the needle, not just, not all things are created equal. And it was a really good word. So number 6 here was one of the, as we started landing the plane, we just had this point here that it's just more fun to be excellent.
Yeah.
So if you're going to do something, like it just is more fun to do it really, really well. And you know what I mean by this humanly, like just to be proud of it, not be ashamed of whatever the work is that you did, but go, I'm glad I'm associated with that. And then also it's more fun to be on a team that's excellent, as opposed to a team that's just kind of getting by. Even if you knocked off early, even if you went home early and it wasn't hard, that's actually less fun than digging deep, being excellent, and having something that you're proud of, seeing the fruit of what it is that you put together. If you prayed and you have thought and you have dreamt and you execute something that's helpful, that is a lot of fun. Being on a winning team is a lot of fun. It's hard, but it's way more fun to be excellent. And so I just wanted our staff to know that, both for them, it's more fun to be excellent. It's more fun to create a team culture that's excellent, and for them really to bring their best to whatever it is that they, are involved with. And just kind of this challenge to whatever it is, whatever your job title is, whatever your area of responsibility, to attack it so that over time, you have this mentality that I'm going to be the best in the world at it, which there is no poll. I always pick on junior high youth pastors. I was one once. There is no poll that lists the top 25 youth pastors in the world. So you're not going to win the prize, but you just have this sense of digging deep, bringing your best, learning, getting feedback, so that, if Jesus, when you got to heaven, just goes, hey, I'm proud of you. Thank you. Well, and what you want to hear is well done. But for some people, just that visual image of like, if there was a poll, I wanted to be the best in the world, which you won't. That mathematically, you'll never be the best, probably at whatever it is that you do. But if you attack it as such, you will become excellent and make everybody else around you excellent. So, John, I'm going to have you close here in a second with the kind of the final charge that you gave our staff. And so friends, that's 6 things that John and I pulled out. We actually rolled out a longer one-pager that had things about even, excellence around our facilities. So how we take care of our facilities, what that communicates to our body and to our city. So it was much more robust than the 6 points that we just gave. And so we'll put that in the show notes and you can see that. And this, again, was just one of the 4. So hopefully this will be good fodder for conversation at the team level. Hopefully there'll be a thought or two for you. But John, I loved the way that you closed. And so if you would close this time as you did with our staff.
So I asked our worship pastor if he would close us in a song when we were gathered together talking about this. And Lois, who I work with on the teaching team, I had her purchase enough of these items for our entire staff that were handed out at the end. And you can't visually see it, of course, on this, but what we sang was The Little Drummer Boy. Completely out of context. We're singing The Little Drummer Boy in the middle of October, September. Yeah. People are like, what in the world? Why are we singing this song? Like, rum-pum-pum-pum, what's going on? But we get to the line where it says, I have no gift to bring that's fit to give our King. I played my drum. I played my best for him. And it's doing the best you can with what you have for him. And so everyone got a sticker, this kind of abstract of the top of a drum with 2 drumsticks on it that we could put on our computers, on your Stanley, like wherever, as a reminder that what my hand finds to do it with all of my might for him, that I will play my best, not so that I could be thought of as the best, but that I played my best for him as an offering to, for, and through him, that he is worthy of this excellence as an offering to the Lord. And John, I think about what you said about the junior high youth pastor and best in the world and all that. And in a sense, it's like, it's that desire, and yet Jesus isn't asking them to be the best in the world. He's asking them to be the best for the 25 kids.
Absolutely.
That God's entrusted. Like, hey, I've given you these 25. Will you be the best for them? You're the only one they have. Like you say, like, I'm the only dad my kids have. And so I'm going all in. There's no other husband to Pam, no other dad to these kids. And no other youth pastor in junior high for these 25. And so I'm gonna offer my best for Jesus, for these kids. And it's a beautiful thing. And man, you sleep well at night.
I love it. What a great way to close. So friends, whatever it is that you're doing, if you're trying to move the kingdom needle, do something good in the world, we hold you in high regard, and I do. John and I both would encourage you to play your best, bring your best for him, and trust him with the results. It doesn't mean you'll even see results, but you bring your best, pursue excellence, help those around you pursue excellence, and I think you have a lot of fun, a lot of satisfaction. So, friends, thanks so much for listening, and hopefully there'll be something in here that's helpful. As always, if you have any questions or comments, ideas for future shows, you can always reach us at clp@watermark.org. That's clp@watermark.org. We'll talk to you again next time.